So we've all heard of the stages of grief, like anger, resentment, disbelief, all of these stages that people talk about. And I can actually recall being very confused when I read about the stages of grief because it didn't really resonate with my feelings of how I was navigating grief. So I'd basically like to redefine the phases of grief for women and give you a few tips to try and implement through each stage to get you through. So the first phase of grief, I will reflect and say it was a little bit like drowning. It really is a sense of feeling like you can't breathe, feeling that there's complete and utter disbelief as to what's happening around you, and is this really real? It can't be real. Is this real? I remember saying that over and over again to myself, and that phase of drowning is a huge challenge for so many people. And the information or the pieces that I share for women in that phase, so if you're in that phase right now, where you've suddenly received this information and suddenly you know that life's never going to be the same, and suddenly it feels like the floor has dropped away, and perhaps you're underwater, the best piece of advice or tip that I can share for this phase is to reach out and look for kindness. A bit like a whitewater rafting ride, it's a bit like just holding on, knowing that you're going to go through some really tough rapids, knowing that you will get to a smoother section soon, but for now it's just hold on. And so I can recall in this phase being really overwhelmed with the amount of kindness that surrounded me, the hands that reached out to help, the people that called or dropped in and gave us food or called or helped us out. And it really, for me, at that time, I can recall a very clear image of feeling like, that an image of a mountain in a lake where you've got the view of mountains on both sides. And it felt to me like grief was really the reflection of love. It really was the reflection of love, and that everybody's help around us, despite the depths of despair that we were navigating, was reflected by the volume of kindness that surrounded us. So if you're currently navigating that first phase, which is drowning, then my best tip is to hold on and just look for kindness, because it will be there somewhere around you. The next phase of grief, and I don't believe there's time frames for these things either, but the next phase for grief, I believe, I like to call climbing a steep sand dune. Now, for some of you who don't live in Australia, it might be like climbing a steep snowdrift. And that climbing phase really feels like it's heavy going. It feels like you take 2 steps up and then slide back, that every single step you take is difficult. Your life, you want to improve, you want to get better, you want to get on with your life, but everything feels fatiguing. It's like your body feels heavy, your heart feels heavy, nobody else around you can see what's going on necessarily. Most people by this stage have kind of moved on and carried on with their lives, and you're left kind of picking up the pieces now. I can really recall in this period of time feeling like I had heavy chains on me that had every single emotional feeling, whether it was resentment, sadness, frustration at myself and at everybody else around me, emotional reactivity, jealousy. I didn't want to be feeling these feelings, but they were chains to me. And I really felt like I was carrying this heavy weight and trying to climb up. Boy, was it hard work. Really, really hard work. So in this particular second phase, my single piece of advice, if I were to go back in time and give myself this advice, is to offer a little kindness to yourself as the first step. And I remember when people said that to me, be kind to yourself, I was like, oh God, you don't know what I'm going through. But in actual fact, a little bit of kindness goes a long way. And what kindness might look like is if you're climbing a mountain and it's 2 steps up, 1 step down, it might be pause. Take a break, sit down for a bit, look at the view. It might be stopping always analysing how far you've got to go. Look, I'll be happy if I can get through all of this, I can get somewhere and find an answer for myself, find meaning in this mess. So being kind to yourself means keep climbing, but if you need to pause, allow yourself to pause. Give yourself the rest break that you need. It might be, instead of looking at how far you've got to go, it might be in that last piece of pause. If you pause for a day or an hour or even a minute, just to look back at how far you've come. Because climbing a mountain, really, you can always look at the end goal and think you've got so far to go, but sometimes it's those small moments of looking back at how far you've come and then appreciating the view along the way. And those simple moments to remember that means that the climb out is maybe not so arduous. So first phase of grief, drowning. Second phase of grief, climbing a steep sand dune or climbing a snowdrift, climbing a mountain where you know it's taking a lot of energy. Nobody else necessarily knows what you're going through. You've got this heavy weight on you. Pausing, reflecting, congratulating yourself for how far you've come, appreciating the view along the way. These are all tips that you can take from those two phases. The last phase, I think, of grief is one that I will call surrender. I can recall spending a lot of time trying to run away from grief, trying to not feel this. I'm tired of feeling this. Maybe if I go for a run, or maybe if I get really busy, or maybe if I do something that numbs it, or maybe, I'm looking for all sorts of solutions to try and escape this feeling, which to me just felt too much. It was too much. But it's that moment of surrender that actually gives you the greatest gift. The moment where you pause, lie down somewhere, maybe it's in the grass, looking at the sky, and just say, here I am. Okay, grief, take over. I give up, I surrender. And I can recall when I first started doing this, thinking that perhaps I would sink and never ever come up again, that grief would maybe consume me to the point that I just wouldn't survive. And what I found actually in those moments of surrender is that grief passed through me, and there were these moments of pure love. And those moments of pure love, in actual fact, came from asking good questions at this time. Not good questions like, how can I get better? but questions like, what gifts and what pieces of this can I contribute to the world? How is this helping me become the person I need to be? What are the favourite pieces of this person in my life that I need to shine out now to help them radiate through me? So these are the three phases of grief: drowning, climbing a steep sand dune, and then finally surrender. And it's the moment of surrender where it's scary, I admit. It feels like maybe you'll fall forever. But that moment of surrender has immense gifts within it. So I hope that explanation of the three phases of grief and those small tips help navigate for you.